What makes Old Blade of Justice an extremely difficult level? Well, today we're going to answer that question in the form of an analysis and scoring system from 0 out of 10, with 0 being auto and 10 being the hardest part in the level. However, there are a few steps we'll do for this video. For one, we'll start by analyzing each part based off of a percentage section, which may or may not include a single game mode. So this means a level like Wood Kid being so fast, you can't really rank just ball parts or wave parts mashed together because of how short they last. At the end, I'll rank each part from hardest to easiest once all the percentage ranges are listed, as well as give my personal opinion on the levels placements on the demons list and the impossible levels list. Of course, this is based off of my opinion, based off my experience with the level. If you have any suggestions for these analysis videos, the only rule is they must be physically possible. So yes, you can request Cyclo Psych or even back on track. Let's begin. 0% to 6% could fit as a very low challenge list level if this was the early days of the challenge list. Some of the timings you're expected to do, mostly the orb timings, are way too precise to get good quickly. Most of the jumps are fairly fine to do if you're skilled at the robot, but it's mostly the orbs that brings this difficulty up by a little bit. Still, in the middle though. Yeah, some people like to credit some of Slaughterhouse's Strafe Flies or Tartarus' Strafe Flies as the hardest Strafe Fly parts in any verified level that anyone could do, but I'd say this is the king of Strafe Fly. First off, you are a mini-ship with the slowest speed possible with spaces that are harder than even Slaughterhouse's Strafe Fly parts. It's mostly because you have to do a bit of curved strafe flying to even pass 2 block structures, and do an insanely awkward strafe fly with a gravity portal thrown in the middle. The 2 timings before the duel where you hit a green orb and release to go in a gravity portal, while not the hardest of this section, definitely adds to the pressure. The duel is not that bad, although your limitation is that dual ship physics are like carrying cinder blocks. And to my knowledge, barely anyone has passed this part. If you're good at the wave, a part could turn into a cakewalk once you know how to pass it. Not always the case, but in this case, I'd say it does apply. The only thing you have to worry about are the 2 mini wave timings and a few spike gaps with the standard wave near the beginning of the part. But other than that, it's one of the more middle parts of the level once you get the hang of it. Yeah, it's kind of long, but it doesn't really matter because of how many people got good at the wave. Although the Strafe Fly here rivals Slaughterhouse, they are way shorter than a single Strafe Fly part in Slaughterhouse. Plus, once you pass the first mini-ship Strafe Fly, the part becomes a breeze if you don't freak out. None of the clubstep monsters give you a threat, especially when transitioning into the next part. This is surprisingly one of the easiest parts of the level, which honestly says a lot about the level's difficulty so far. What keeps it from being the easiest are the final 2 ball clicks, but other than that, this is actually as hard as Betrayal of Fate's ball parts, which is also not that hard to pull off. Although, just because I say that doesn't mean it's easy for everyone. Unfortunately, that cannot be said for this UFO part. Of every part I'll rank in this list, this is one of the 2 luck-based sections, because this part puts so much pressure on you to do a precise double click either with the spacebar and the mouse at the same time, or a 10 CPS double click. But getting to that part also has a lot of luck thrown onto you given the timing to get between the first 2 spike structures is so precise it takes a good while to find the frames to squeeze through the spike gap. If you mess up the double click, you need to either time the green orb early or late depending on the position you end up with, which screws up with your tempo a lot and can kill you most of the time. Oh look, it's another easiest part. Yeah, I already mentioned that people get so good at the wave that this part is honestly laughable. You could probably do this part 10 times in a row and not die. Still hard, but definitely easier than the ball part since you don't have a choke point at the end. I originally thought that the first ship part was the hardest when discounting another upcoming part that is the hardest part, but actually, that title belongs to this part in particular. Now imagine River's part in Slaughterhouse, use regular speed, have spaces that are even tighter than Slaughterhouse, and rival Super Challenge's spaces, and you get this part. On 144Hz, many of these timings are possibly a frame perfect, but you have a bit more wiggle room with 240Hz, but that doesn't make it easier. But that's not even the end of it. RobTop, being a bit smart with his hitbox decisions, made it to where the hitbox registering spikes in 9-degree increments is bigger than the hitbox that registers blocks and slopes, and this part is one of its biggest casualties. Also, your clicks must be this very specific pattern to even pass the slopes, otherwise you'll just die over and over and over again, more from the slopes and not the spikes. This is definitely a part that has a force to be reckoned with. The only reason this part is hard is because of the first blue orb timing, and that's about it. Other than that, you'll mostly deal with some precise orb timings, a common trend for this level. If you're decent at jumping through tight spike gaps, there is no problem as long as you can learn the orb timings. Otherwise, this is one of the more higher mid parts. The duel that started Duel Deception and is the hardest part of the level. You'll mostly get used to some of the timings in this part if you discount the dual straight fly, but if you factor in the dual straight fly, you are looking at a part that has more luck factors than the UFO part we talked about before. I mean, is there even a duel part where a transition is dependent on the position of the two players? Because if you don't align yourself up properly with the ship and cube, you will die because the ships don't straight fly closely to each other. And if that's not enough, to get the alignment, it requires one of your ship parts to be touching the spike sprite, just so the two ships line up properly. And of course, the final ship timing is the choke point of this part, so that also adds to this difficulty. Because of how hard this part is, I decided to take this part and multiply it by 2, which I do have a video on and verified the level. So if you want to go try that, go ahead. Honestly, this is just Crack's part in Bloodbath, but a bit buffed. If you're good at Crack's part, you're also good at this part. Plus, it's really short. What saves it from being lower is the mini wave transition, and that can be a bit annoying at times. But honestly, not the worst thing ever. Now take that part we just looked at, make it slower, add a ball part, make the straight fly tighter, throw in a curved straight fly, and a tight transition at the wave, and you get a harder version of the previous section. Honestly, what makes this hard is the long mini ship straight fly, and it's on par with the first ship straight fly, but the difference is you don't have all of the dumb quirks that make that part so hard. Still, a hard part nonetheless. After playing this part for quite some time, I actually found this one to be one of the easiest parts of the level once you learn the click pattern. But learning that click pattern is kind of not easy, especially when you factor in the transitions at the end. Those parts are not fun to deal with. If you're not freaking out when you're doing a good run, this is honestly a chill part if you mastered the part, unlike a majority of the parts where you need to be confident you mastered it. This one takes a lot less effort to master. This part is a laughable joke of a part. It's the easiest part in such a hard level. Even if you're not the best at Swing Copter, you'll soon realize how little of an attempt count you'll have once you get good at the part. And this happens very quickly. Probably the first part you can master, honestly. If this was a separate level, it would probably be an insane rated level, or an easy demon. I'm bringing every section of this percentage region into one since I can't be bothered with splitting it apart. The first wave you get thrown into is the hardest part of this section, but it soon loses difficulty as you progress through this section. The ship part plus the UFO are the easiest parts and will probably take you like 15 attempts to pass combined. The ship part after that is a bit tricky since you have to line yourself up properly, which can kill you 1 or 2 times more than you think. The wave part is slightly harder, but for different reasons. Once again, the hitbox shenanigans with Rob Top and the fact that there are spikes everywhere. The ball part after that is only hard because of the last few orb timings. Getting the last orb timing right throws you into a ship part, which isn't the worst thing. I'd say that's the most mid part. And then you have 3 orbs that barely matter in terms of timing. Still hit them or you'll die. If you've managed to make this far in the level from 0%, the level has one more trick up its sleeve by giving you a very stressful ship part that is very easy to mess up, specifically when you are the regular size ship. Why I put this part up so high is you were already thrown into the ringer and a half that is the rest of the level, and dying here means you have to do the whole level all over again. It gives me Abyss of Darkness vibes, except this level came out earlier than that if I remember correctly. Again, hitbox shenanigans. The hitbox that registers hazard objects like spikes is bigger than the hitbox that registers blocks. But if you can pass that part, you've beaten the level. But alright, I know you're gonna ask this. It's time to rank these parts from hardest to easiest based on these sections. At the very editing and tired mentulum here, I was originally just gonna say all the percentage ranges from the hardest to the easiest, but that took up like 5% of the video, so here they are. If you have different opinions, then let me know in the comments below. Now, this level's difficulty would arguably be harder than Abyss of Darkness and Silent Clubstep. Although Abyss of Darkness is the king of consistency, and Silent Clubstep is the king of consistency and is a stress test, Old Blade of Justice is the king of luck, consistency, and endurance. And I'd say the position on the impossible levels list is relatively accurate to me. If you want to know how hard those levels are, subscribe to the channel and like the video so you don't miss out on that. And comment that you want to see an Abyss of Darkness and Silent Clubstep difficulty analysis. While you're at it, if your rankings are different than mine, let me know yours in the comments below. but that's about it. Thanks y'all. See ya.